Hey guys, welcome back. I have another video, and it is a showcase of another lost and forgotten miniature range produced by Citadel. And this is the gothic horror range of miniatures that Citadel produced. These guys originally were made for Call of Cthulhu. Games Workshop, I believe, either or were going to try to get the rights for the Call of Cthulhu RPG, and they started producing both the gothic horror range of miniatures, which are like the humans and detectives, and they produced a range called the Night Horrors or Night Terrors. I forgot which one it is. And those were like the ghouls, the imps, and mummies and vampires. However, they actually lost the rights to Grenadier, and so they had to kind of put a stop to it, renamed some of these miniatures. I know for the night horrors, the monsters such as this imp over here, they got moved over to their undead range of miniatures. So if you go to the secondhand market or look up some older blisters, when it says Citadel Undead, they might be a few skeletons and mummies packed with imps, ghouls, some Medusas, and all that stuff. But we're going to focus on the gothic horror range, which are the detectives. And what you're seeing in front of you is all the miniatures I have. I'm still missing quite a few, and unfortunately, I've sold a lot. You're going to see my old paint jobs in this corner. I am kind of fond of them, but eventually I'm going to be stripping them to paint everything in my current paint style. I painted these miniatures over a year ago and took a small break from wargaming. And now that I'm back, I have quite a few plans to do with these miniatures. If you know me, which I'm sure many of you don't fully know, I actually love H.P. Lovecraft and all of his works. So when I found out they had this range of miniatures a couple years ago, I knew I had to start collecting them. So let's start with some really, I think, interesting miniatures, which are the painted ones. We'll start with the Citadel Rogue. So this is my older paint style. I was heavily inspired by Oldhammer in Toronto. Unfortunately, it's not my paint style, so I stopped painting. And actually, I kind of lost motivation, and that's when I took my break from wargaming. But this miniature is I believe, he's called a Rogue, and he is godly expensive. I've seen him sell for $90, 125. I'm not quite sure why this model is so expensive. I forgot how I got my miniature now, but I think he's a lovely miniature. He's actually one of my favorites, and I've played him in a lot of board games, in my Strange Aeons Lovecraftian skirmish games. He served as like an evil threshold agent. He served as a playable character, but I don't think he was worth that much money. But it is a very lovely sculpt, and I do love the detail they managed to get onto the miniature. But here's the Citadel Rogue. I believe this range may have been sculpted by Ali Morrison and Trish Gardner, but I have to double check that. But lovely model here. I did paint him to match the Mansions of Madness character. I did have a goal of using these miniatures for a lot of Lovecraftian board games, but like I said, it never really got off the ground. But now with my new paint style and all my new projects, I'm excited to try painting them again. So this is the Citadel Rogue. Then we have the Citadel Yokel, and he is a very cute model. Uh, I like the detail. I like the overalls. And again, with the classic Citadel miniatures, they have such lovely faces. And I know, again, like I've said 1,000 times now, not the most beautiful sculpting, but it's just very charmful. And it does, make people want to stop and take a look at these weird looking proportions and detail. But the yokel, lovely model. I'd say he's not hard to find. Rather, he's not rare, but he does go for a decent amount. I'd say anywhere within $25 to $40 seems pretty reasonable. I do like the model. In a lot of games, he could be a threshold agent, a playable character, or just like an NPC. But yeah, very, very generic. Nothing too crazy to talk about. I think the model is straightforward. I like it. He's cool, but nothing like so game changing that I encourage you to go hunt him down. But I'm happy to have him in my collection. Then we have I think this is the Private Eye. I forgot the name. I should have brushed up on all the names for the miniatures, but this guy, if you watch Always Bored, Never Boring, or any other, Oldhammer ish channels, you'll see this miniature was one of the characters for The Curse of the Mummy, the board game from Games Workshop. And he looks like a iconic, just generic detective you'd see in black and white movies, like The Maltese Falcon. I love that movie, watched it with my mother, and just a great looking model. I like the pose, very intimidating. Um, and I mean, I think this one has been seen the most on YouTube, so I don't have to talk about him too much. In my games of Strange Aeons and Lovecraft, we've named him Joe Diamond, and I believe that's also a name of a character in Mansions of Madness, if I'm not mistaken. But a very lovely model. And again, I do have to strip the models. This is the older paint style. I'm not too fond of it anymore. I just didn't feel like me. But lovely model. And I actually think I have... Okay, he's the only one of that. Then we have... I want to say this is a gangster, and I actually have two of him. Okay, so his actual name was Hood from Citadel, and I think it's 1985, 1986, 1985. I do pick up some duplicates as I intend to convert some of them. So this is supposed to be like a gangster or a bootlegger, who knows. I do love the detail of the model, and the pose is a bit off now that I look at it. His head is very large for the body, but it shouldn't dissuade you from maybe picking it up to paint. It's really cool. And the reason I have a duplicate model is I'm intending to make some of them basically half deep ones. If you know the Call of Cthulhu story, it's called, not Escape from Innsmouth. Holy Lord. The story that had the concept of Innsmouth with half the followers of Dagon, the deep ones, I'm intending to make half the miniatures into fish people. So I'm going to sculpt on the second copy more fish attributes to the face, just so he could count as one of the followers of Dagon. But this model is great, has a scar on his face, a cigarette in the mouth, and it just looks kick-ass. I think I was actually inspired by Oldhammer in Toronto when I think about it, because I was using these guys a lot for Mansions of Madness, and I think he did that. So a huge inspiration. But again, we'll have to strip these guys. The next model is the Butler, and quite fun. I think this pose had two different variations. This is the Butler version, and I think the second one was just an alternative Butler. Wasn't as old. He kind of reminds me of Alfred, but yeah, really lovely model. I just really like the simplicity of them, and you could really go into a lot more detail. You can see I last year tried doing some black lines. Not the best, but I think it does do the model some justice. I think he's holding an envelope, which is very odd. I thought it'd be something else, but this model, pretty cheap. I should have mentioned Hood. So this guy, I think you can find easily for below $15. I wouldn't pay anything more than that. It's just a generic butler that you can honestly find from any alternative Oldhammer miniature websites. Hood himself, I'd say paying maybe like $25-$30 wouldn't be too unrealistic. He does seem a bit, not rare, but just like the Rogue, hard to find in the sense that just find someone willing to sell it. Not rare in the sense he's like a golden grail. I don't think so. Then the last painted miniature is a huntress. This honestly is not my most favorite model. There were two variations. This one has the little safari hat on, but her face, Citadel wasn't known to sculpt the most gracious looking um, female characters, but this one is a little bit too ugly, but it's a great model besides the head. And I would desperately try to find the second pose. As I don't like the safari look too much. It would work in a lot of pulp games. Because I play a lot more Lovecraft stuff and Strange Aeons, I'd say it's a bit difficult to find her uses up until now. In the next couple videos, I have an unboxing for a new pulp game, unboxing and talking about it. So this character may fit well into it. But I think for this one, I did pay upwards of $35. Um, I wouldn't recommend it. I'll be honest. I think this model you can skip. I don't think this is uh, anything special, but I have it, so I'm definitely gonna keep it and repaint her. So those are the painted miniatures. Sorry about the blurriness. Let's go to the three models that I had prepared but never painted from my old painting. So this is, I want to say it's a sorority girl. Is that the name Citadel gave? I wish I had the tab open. Regardless, very nice. This model I do think looks amazing. Pardon the paint splatter. I think my painting over a year ago, I just did the basing and called it a day. But I like the simplicity of the model. She reminds me of Sarah Jane from Doctor Who, and I actually do think this model used the head of Sarah Jane. Citadel did produce a Doctor Who line of miniatures with Fassa in 1985, and I used to own the Sarah Jane model before I sold her, and the head was exactly the same. So I think they took the body of a different gothic horror model and just stuck it on. But I like it, much cooler. And why I like this range of miniatures, and my fiance likes it a lot too, is um, all of the woman characters are, they look realistic in the sense like the clothing matches like the Roaring Twenties and that era. I really like it. I do like the potential of colors you can use for it. So this is her. I am not sure how much you'd pay for this model. Um, Maybe $20. I wouldn't pay any more than that. Again, it's very nice compared to the Huntress, but nothing that screams Citadel or Oldhammer gem. Then we have a older woman from the Gothic horror range miniatures. This one I do appreciate just because I feel like you don't see a lot of like more like matriarchal or like an elderly woman from Citadel, and the few you do see are like witches or hags. So it's nice to have one that just looks like a good generic old woman. You can use her in games of Mansion of Madness, make her NPC in games of Call of Cthulhu. So happy to have her. I think she does sell for maybe 20 to $30 as well. So I'd say that is the cost you're looking at. Any characters like the detective from the Curse of the Mummy, or the Curse of the Mummy characters, 10 bucks because they're quite generic, but the rest potentially 20 to $30. This one is, I think, called Betty from the Gothic horror range. It's probably like a mid 20s or maybe even a high school girl. And I do like the detail where I think she's grabbing a pistol from her purse. This black primer, even this close, is hard to see, but I do like it. Again, a good character to fit that Lovecraftian Call of Cthulhu vibe. But this one I have seen go only for $10. I think once you start getting to the poses that have like this long dress, they don't go for so much. Maybe it's not so dynamic, or they were produced a lot more. I don't know the exact production history. All I know is GW was preparing for the Call of Cthulhu, and then they just didn't get the rights. So these models, I do feel like, just like the advanced Dungeons and Dragons, probably had a short lifespan in the history of Citadel. but really cool models nonetheless. Then let's go to the models that are unpainted. So we already saw Hood, so I can put him away with his other counterpart. This one I do like a lot. So this is the Citadel Explorer model from 1985. This one looks almost exact from one of the covers of Call of Cthulhu by Chaosium. I think in one of these days I'll show the cover art from the original first edition of Call of Cthulhu. And this miniature looks almost one for one to match the cover, and I love it. This model fits more of the Safari model. Holding a torch, has the camera pick of like a miner almost. So really lovely detail. And this model, I will say, if you do like Oldhammer, I'd look out for this guy as he is distinct in my opinion. So very cool model, a lot of fun painting potential. And then if you like to do all of OSL, you can work a lot of magic with the little lamp. So that's the Explorer. Let's go with the Punk from their Gothic horror range. This guy, I think, had two other variations. This is the Punk version. So he has like the old Peaky Blinders, English looking cap, got a nasty grin, his face ready to go with a dagger. So this would be easily an evil character in my pulp / Lovecraft games. I think the other one was called the Fighting Man. He just had his two bare fists up. But this pose I do like. I kind of forget when I got this model, but very nice detail. And you can tell, like, I like the way they used to do the old texture. They just stabbed the fur texture in. So a lot of nice dry brushing and glazes should make this little wool sweater look nice. So this is the Punk from their range. Moving along, I have the alternative sculpt from, I'm gonna call him Joe Diamond, the painted guy. So this is another variation. And this pose I like a lot more, as he has the cap covering one eye. He has this cool grin and the pistol's a bit different. So let me do a side-by-side comparison. So this is the one that you get in the Curse of the Mummy, very generic. And then this one, just that slight change with, I think even his feet are slightly different too. This one looks like the boss. This guy looks like a generic Threshold agent. So very, very cool to have. And again, with all these overcoats, I'm so excited to start painting them with all of my new brown recipes for leather and all that. But very cool miniature. I forgot what they named him. I want to say, is he the Private Eye? I forget. I should have gotten a small note card to have everything ready, but that's this guy. Moving along, we got two. So this one, I'd say, oh, perfect. So this is Betty, and then this is Ethel. And you can tell again how GW usually does their things. They have the same base body, but she has a pistol, not her, sorry. She has the pistol coming out while Betty doesn't. So what they would usually do is have the same model, switch the head and small details. So this one model could produce, 3 to 4 extra miniatures. But I used to own this one painted. I sold it over a year ago. Managed to get one more, as I want all these different characters for all the different games. But she's not, these two sculpts aren't so striking to me again. I'm happy to have them, but if you just want a couple models from the Gothic horror range, don't go for these two. I think they're a little bit too bland in my opinion. So there we go. This is another little character. I forgot, I can't actually read the tab anymore. It's there, but I think it literally just says young girl. So this is a young girl from the Gothic range. Very nice. I do like the sun hat vibe a lot more. I think this one with the hands, clutched together, she looks a bit more scared. So there's more like, I'd say story or character to the model compared to Ethel and Betty. Ethel just looks pissed with the pistol coming out of her purse, like she's about to shoot you down. But the young girl looks like you could use it for a diorama with a night horror in the background trying to scare her. So very cool model. So this one I encourage you to get just because if you make small vignettes, the pose has a lot more, I'd say, workability into it. Then we got actually, I think this is the investigator, but it's supposed to be Sherlock Holmes from Citadel. So really lovely model. And the reason I like this miniature is he actually has the base model from the third Doctor from Citadel's Doctor Who range. Like I just mentioned, they usually switch the head and a couple details. For this investigator, he's called the investigator. He's supposed to be Sherlock Holmes. Um, they removed the head and they removed his sonic screwdriver, but this is the same body as the third Doctor. So really cool to have this one. I'd say he is a bit harder to come by, but this model is one I definitely encourage you to hunt down if you wanted some token from this old forgotten range of Citadel. But yeah. Then I have I think initiate. This is supposed to be like almost like a cult member getting ready to go join his new family. I think he had two different variations as well. Lovely detail. He has two scrolls in his hands, and that's why I like these miniatures. All these very subtle details. Again, I think you can read in my comment section. I'm glad a lot of people do like the older range of miniatures. You just don't have to think too much about what they have. What they have makes sense. It's not like he has 1,000 random trinkets on his belt buckle. So I do like this model. Really happy to have him. Then I have just a generic punk. This one is probably the most unimpressive model of the range. He just fits the bill. He could be a drunkard in Innsmouth. He could be a maniac in games of Strange Aeons, or just whatever you need him to be to fill that void. But this model, please ignore. If you're gonna hunt miniatures, don't waste time on this guy. And then a model I'm really proud to own is Jack the Ripper. I wouldn't say he has the same head as this guy. Maybe slightly different. But this is Jack the Ripper. I know when I first discovered this model over a year ago, I desperately spent time hunting him down, and I was very fortunate to get him. But very lovely model. He's perfect for games of any pulp game and any Lovecraftian game. You can see the dagger coming out of his pocket. And he probably might be maybe one of the first 3 I paint for my Lovecraftian project. But this model, I'd say easily paying mid $20 to $30 is very reasonable, as he's a very lovely model. Has quite a bit of girth to him. And just because he's Jack the Ripper, there's so much, potential with him. And I just like all the detail. Let me see if I can bring him in closer. I just like the high collar, the little medallion holding his little cape up. He's good to use for a lot of other miniatures too. Like in Talisman, he could be an alternate assassin miniature if you really wanted to, or anything. So he does have a lot of uses, and I'm really happy to have him. And then we have, now this one, I want to see what the tab says, because I don't want to, I think he's also okay, so I have a duplicate of him. He is supposed to be, I want to say like an alchemist, maybe. And he is very cool. They did make 2 variations of him. The other one is a drunk model. He's holding a bottle of wine, but having 2 of him, I can easily get the second copy and make that fish head look for Innsmouth and all of that Lovecraftian detail. So a really nice model to have in the collection. I know a lot of this was more not insulting, but recommending which models to get, as even though I said all the things about these models, I actually do really love these miniatures, and I regret selling. I had about 5 others I painted and that I sold, unfortunately. I do regret that decision. I'm happy to own this many of them. I am still trying to get a couple more. This will be great for all my games of Mansions and all the other projects. And like I mentioned, I am going to do an unboxing of a new pulp game that I will definitely be using these guys. And why these models have more, I guess, a special place in my heart is my fiance Sam. Actually, this was the first time she really played war games with me. So it's something that we can both, bond over and play. And it means a lot to me that she actually appreciates my crazy nerd interest into Lovecraft and his cosmic horror. But I hope you guys enjoyed a little bit of this history of Citadel. I know it's a bit brief. I'm going to end the video on models that I do recommend you look out for. I think either Joe Diamond or this miniature are a must to have. This sculpt, very easy to find from Curse of the Mummy. This one, not so hard, but make sure you don't get confused with this one. The Rogue, I think, really cool, and with all of his nice cute detail, he's one to look out for. Then I'd say, of course, the Explorer is another miniature I highly recommend. And lastly, I'd say Mr. Sherlock Holmes, just because such an icon and he fits into so many games. But I hope you guys enjoyed that. I'll be back with my weekly painting update and then a couple unboxings and a few more battle reports of Otherworld Fantasy and some other skirmish games.